Hi everybody, Kat here. Well, in a previous video, I posed the question, is life imitating art? King Charles III. And I'm here to tell you today, yes, we live in very interesting times. Just a quick little recap if you haven't seen that video and you don't know what we're talking about. In 2014, a play was produced and run in England called King Charles III. 2017, it was made into a movie. The movie can be found on the video streaming service Vimeo if you're interested, and it is a bit of a good watch. At the time, I thought it was far-fetched, but where we're at now, it's quite incredible. There was the whole storyline of Harry getting together with a black girl who was a feminist, an anti-monarchist, a bit of a socialist. Just, very interesting, that correlation. But the gist of the movie it started at Queen Elizabeth's funeral was the opening of the movie. And Charles's coronation, an issue came up in government. In my first video, I didn't allude to what that issue might be because I kind of wanted to wait and see if something happened, and indeed it has. In the movie, the issue was about a Privacy Act. Much the same as the lawsuit Harry's got going right now with the likes of Elton John and other celebrities petitioning the government that they shouldn't have the right, people shouldn't have the right to print and say things about them that they don't want publicized. A privacy bill, in a sense, that would favor the elites. Well, today, such a lawsuit is going on in Britain, and we have an even bigger issue. The new season of The Crown drops on Netflix next month. Season 5. And in that, they're going to depict more of the Charles and Diana story. They're going to depict her accident, things like that. And I think it's been leaked. I don't know if it's going to be in season 5 or in a future season that they're talking about. I've heard things about, they're going to bring things out about affairs Prince Philip had, things Charles had done. And it seems Charles isn't really happy about this. What happened in the past? They just, The Crown, it's fiction, loosely based on fact. Don't complain, never explain. They never said anything about it. But somehow now, it's a big deal. And it's a big deal because Charles has just been newly crowned. Well, he hasn't, had the coronation, but he is our new king. And Camilla is the queen consort. I'll tell you, there's a lot of people still around that were around in the Diana days that know how badly she was treated. Now, she was no saint, and I'm not saying that. I'm not just all, Saint Diana, Queen of Hearts, but Charles and even Camilla at that time and their friends and people in government, people in their elite circles were gaslighting Diana at the time. People make a big deal about, Diana, and she made these kind of deals with the press, and and one day she hated them, the other day she was running to Richard Kay and feeding him stories, and this kind of thing. Well, don't you know, at that time, Camilla had a friend in the press. I think it was the Sun, I could be mistaken, but she had a friend in the press too, that she would go have discreet little lunches with and spill some dirt and promote the version of Diana that they wanted out in the press, that she was crazy, she was unstable, this kind of thing. And Charles had a large coterie of elite friends, government associates, and this kind of thing that they put those stories out too as well. So that was the general consensus, you know. Diana's crazy, she's unstable. They were gaslighting the girl, not to mention all the other things that went on, which I talked about before, and we could go on and on. But anyway, so this new series of Netflix, The Crown, is not painting Charles or the royal family in the best of light. Things they'd probably not want talked about or mentioned. And I mean, you and I both know that The Crown is a work of fiction basically loosely based on factual things. You know, people are coming out and saying, "Oh, they should not be um, you know, dramatizing Diana's car crash and her death, and that's just, that's terrible, and, purient, and they're gonna tell a story that isn't true, and, Harry is making money off his mother's death with Netflix and all of that, but that's Harry. He's bad. Harry's bad. They shouldn't be talking about this on Netflix. It's only been 18 months since Prince Philip died. They shouldn't be talking about the fact that possibly he had some affairs. They shouldn't be talking about Charles and Camilla and how mean they were to Diana at the time. Charles is upset about this. He doesn't want his wife to be painted in a bad light. He doesn't want this kind of chitter chatter out in the public at the beginning of his reign. He doesn't want a spot or a wrinkle on the royal family's reputation. And people are coming on board and they're saying, "Oh, that's terrible, Netflix, they shouldn't be doing this, and how bad of them, and good gracious, our royal family, and we should respect them, and we shouldn't allow these horrible things to be said." Well, I'll tell ya, whether these things are true, whether they're false, whether they're loosely based on fact and they've weaved a little story in for entertainment purposes only, you gotta let it run. It's called free speech. Here's what's happening right now. You've got Harry in the midst of a lawsuit about privacy in the British courts with the likes of Elton John and other people. They don't want people to be able to say anything about them that they don't want said. You've got a huge blow up with Netflix now. How dare Netflix denigrate our royal family, and at this time, and the Queen just died, and Charles just became king, and they want to say all these horrible things. Bad Netflix. So, what's the solution? Well, a previous Prime Minister of Britain, John Major's, come out and said how horrible this is, and Netflix, and they're gonna, you know, say these lies and these terrible things. Well, if it's lies, sue them. It's not an outright lie. It's based on information that's out there, and they've weaved a story about it. Whether it's all completely true or not is really beside the point. Charles is mad. They're going to denigrate his wife. They're going to sully his reign. And they're going to bring up things the royal family would rather have you forget. The British government is in a position now where they're even considering not just banning the crown, banning the whole network of Netflix from Britain. And any bill that goes through the British government needs royal assent. So here we get to the apex of the movie, where the government has a bill on privacy in the House that they need to vote on. They want the assurances from King Charles that he will support this bill. There's one scene in the movie, you have a crowd of people. It's from a window in Buckingham Palace looking down over the courtyard and the mall and the statue and, you know, where everybody gathers. And there's hundreds of thousands of people outside protesting. Some were for the bill, some were against the bill. And the balance of it held in Charles's hands. It's an interesting dilemma. And here we've got a situation where we're in much the same scenario. Charles doesn't like what Netflix is doing. The government sees it as a perfect opportunity to seize control and strip you of your rights. The right to free speech. You think if they can ban Netflix, that they can't ban anything else? It's a stepping stone. And the way it's done is very interesting. It's called a Hegelian dialectic. Research that. Problem, reaction, solution. Government's got a problem. They want to exert more control over you. Now, if they just came out, if none of this had, let's say Netflix didn't happen or whatever, and the government just came out and said, we're going to ban this, the public would go crazy. Look at the reaction to the whole virus and the lockdowns and everything else. A lot of people didn't like it. Well, if they came out and just said, no, we don't want you to see this, so you don't get to. You don't get to make the choice. What our choice should be, if you want to pay for Netflix and you want to watch The Crown, go ahead. If you think it's bunk, if you think it's crap, don't give them your money. Don't give them your viewing time. But it has to be your choice. Once you let the government and I mean, they've already gone overboard and they're out of control already. This is just another step. There's just another little baby step to gain more control over you. And it's not just Britain. I'm in Canada. It's happening here in Canada. A lot of things here are suppressed. For example, there was a Twitter hashtag going around called Trudeau Must Go because our Prime Minister is anyway. Um, he was able to suppress that. That suppression of freedom of speech and expression. It's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And this is just a huge example in Britain. This whole Netflix debacle. If they can ban Netflix and they can control what you can see and what you cannot see, and I mean the British government and the royal family, I could talk for hours, and we'll explore this some more. The many ways that they've already suppressed things they don't want you to know about. Um, so it's nothing new, but it really is time to wake up and see what's really going on. Um, See what they do. They'll have a lot of people that say, "Oh well, Netflix. Eh, it's just a show. It's entertainment. Big deal. I watch it. I don't really believe it, but you know, it's fun to watch." Some people will be highly offended that they would go after the royal family in that way and say those terrible things about them, and none of it's true, and so don't watch it. Don't watch it. It's simple. You've also got Charles, who doesn't want stuff from 30 years ago brought out into the open now that he's just king. There's a lot of young people around who are right on board with his green agenda that he doesn't want to lose for them looking at things that happened 30 years ago. The whole treatment of Diana, the gaslighting of Diana, the conditions under which she died, which there's still some compelling information out there that the narrative they put out may not necessarily be the truth. But I mean, it's up to you to look at the information and decide yourself. We no longer can look at the royal family with blind deference, devotion, and worship and just say, "Oh, they can never put a foot wrong. We must protect them at all costs. We must swear allegiance and never question anything." You know what? It's time to start questioning. It is. It's time to start looking at it, looking at the big picture, looking at what's really going on. This isn't a Netflix issue, folks. This isn't a crown issue, folks. This is a free speech issue, and it hangs in the balance when you've got the king, previous prime ministers, people in government, elitists, friends of Charles, all saying, "This is terrible. This should never be allowed to air. How dare they denigrate our king and our royal family?" If this is put through Parliament in Britain, Charles will have a decision to make. Does he side with free speech and just have to shake off the things that Netflix says about him? Or is he willing to take away your free speech so that his reputation isn't sullied. And they say the crown has no power. Your king has that power. He's got the power to do what he wants, to serve himself, and your rights can go right out the window. Just like in the movie King Charles III, we're absolutely at that point. Life is imitating art. The time loop continues to roll on right on schedule. Charles has the power to make this decision, and under parliamentary monarchy, he has the obligation to make this decision. Will he sign that bill to get rid of Netflix? Get rid of your right of freedom of speech and freedom of expression? Or is he going to side with your basic human rights and refuse to sign? That is the premise of the movie. That resulted in his downfall. And that's where we're at now, folks. And you've got to think about yourself and your blind devotion to your royal family. Do they really deserve it? I don't think they do. It's time for us to start thinking. It's time for us to start really looking at what's really going on and the wider implications of everything. I know that's a lot to think about. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. Send me a comment. I'd like to know what you think. We need to fight for free speech. And if that means everybody in Britain's got to go down on the mall under the window of Buckingham Palace and protest, so that Charles knows that free speech is more important than a couple episodes of a series on a streaming network, then you gotta put it to him. It's time to stand up for your rights and tell the king how you feel. Netflix isn't the issue, folks. Freedom of speech is. I'll leave you with that. Take care. Bye-bye.